What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I am your host, the bald, the beard, the beautiful Piers Austin, and we are brought to you live by Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance on Facebook and on YouTube, and also on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you are finding us, as long as you are finding us. It is Tuesday evening here. And you know what it is? It's that time to pour yourself a stiff one, crack yourself a cold one, roll yourself a green one, sit back, relax, and enjoy another amazing episode. But guys, before I bring out my guest, Mr. Callan Butcher, I just want to take a quick second, a quick pause, a quick moment to thank some sponsors. First up is A-Rock Designs. Now, A-Rock Designs is that company everyone is seeing all over the wrestling Facebook groups, all over the wrestling Instagram pages. They make custom cups, tumblers. They made me this custom CM Punk tumbler, which I absolutely love. It's really, really cool. Everyone knows I'm a huge Punk mark, even though Bin Hameen has now got me calling him CM Cunt. I just can't get that out of my head. But anyway, I digress, guys. Next is Signal Studio. So you know what? If you're an independent professional wrestler, one thing you need to have is some dope, fly, insane entrance music. Now, my boy Rafi from Signal Studios can mix, master, produce any kind of track that you want and send it out to you anywhere in the world. Or if you're a local musician and you need a place to jam, a place to rehearse, a place to record, Signal Studios has the most comfortable and relaxing atmosphere you could imagine to get your creative juices flowing. But guys, I can see there's a few people in the chat here at the moment. We have Maxime from Quebec, Canada, joining us. Thank you very much for tuning in. But guys, you know what? I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm going to bring him out. What's up, Callan? How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you? Happy to be on the show.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, man. I've been watching a few of your matches that you've had, most recently. I haven't seen your most recent match, but I've, seen the clips of it, seen photos of it. Man, it looks like Deathmatch Down Under, their first show, they really hit the ground running. And, you were main event for that show in 100 light tube death match against Damian Rivers. Man, how you holding up after that match, brother?
It's been a week and a half now, so like recovered mostly. I've still got like a big open cut on the back of my arm, but trying to keep that clean. But other than that, yeah, no, I'm absolutely thrilled to have been in the main event of the first DMDU show. I've watched the entire show back. I got sent the link for that, and it's incredible. And I can't wait for people to see it on IWTV. It's gonna be insane.
Man, I can't wait for it to come out, man. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and watching the show. From all reports, from bell to bell, from the first match to the last, I've been hearing great things about that show. But you recently just got into deathmatch wrestling. Like, this is not something that you've been doing for years and years and years. What made you decide to go down the path of becoming a deathmatch wrestler?
So I think it was about 2017. I went to Japan for a holiday, and like on the second night that we were there was the G1 Climax. I think it was A Block finals, and had like Okada and Tanahashi. And while we were over there, I said to my friends, I'm like, I want to go see some other wrestling. Well, I wanted to go see something at Korakuen, and like the next night there was a Big Japan show at Korakuen. There was a deathmatch show, and I dabbled in death matches, like watching them, and we went there and we got like third row in Korakuen Hall, and like the last three matches were all death matches, and I seen like Abdullah Kobayashi biting through light tubes, and it was just the most insane, like the insane experience. Like I'd already been wrestling by then, locally, and I walked out of that night and was standing like out the front, like right near the TGI Fridays at Korakuen Hall, and I was like, I need to do this. I need to be a deathmatch wrestler. Like one of my main goals is to do a tag team with Abdullah Kobayashi one day, so we can be Abdullah and the Butcher.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Abdullah and the Butcher. That would be something crazy, man. But so after going and being there and seeing that that death match and that first night for you, and really sort of locking you into wanting to do it. What steps did you take? Obviously that you obviously said you dabbled in it as a fan. It was obviously something that you had to experience live to really capture you. Would you say?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like I'd watched like little bits here and there, and then after that, like when I went back to the hotel room, I just like CZW straight away. As soon as I got back, I watched like Nick Mondo's documentary, The Trade. I watched the Vice documentaries, The Wrestlers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, I tried like getting myself in more hardcore matches and stuff because like deathmatch in Australia doesn't really exist. And then there was the Body Slam show, which was the deathmatch show at Max Watts here in Melbourne. And like I tried to get onto that show, I couldn't. But I still went there and helped out. Like met, spoke to a few of the guys saying how much I want to do deathmatch. And then yeah, there was then we got to like the Casanova Valentine when Joel called him out, and I messaged Joel and I'm like, man, if you need help with anything on this show, let me know because I'll be there. And then yeah, ended up getting a spot for the second deathmatch down under Casanova Valentine show.
That's crazy, man, because like yeah, it like you're pretty much like your first or second death match is against someone like Casanova Valentine,
Yeah,
whose reputation precedes him, to being, the ultra violent no ring death match guy. What did you have any nerves going into that match?
I had so many nerves because the one that I did was not the one that I was supposed to be in. I was supposed to be in one the following week, but that one got cancelled due to COVID. But this one, there were two people who were supposed to be in it. This was right after, like about an hour after he's no ring with Joel Bateman, um, and there was supposed to be two other people in it, and they had to pull out very late. And then yeah, I got the phone call the night before, and it's like, hey, they need somebody else to do this death match. Are you in? And I was like, I'm already going to be there for Joel's one. Sure, I'll bring my gear. But yeah, the like, especially like watching what Cass and Joel went through, and then knowing that like in an hour's time, I'm gonna have to do that stuff too. Like I was terrified, but like as soon as I got out there in front of that crowd, I was switched on and I was ready to go.
How do you prepare yourself to go through a death match? I mean, like regular, like just a standard, traditional wrestling match is extreme on the body.
Mm.
It's wrestling isn't for everybody to be able to go in there and do what you guys do. But how do you prepare going into a death match where you've got all the extra elements and the extra gimmicks there? And like I said, it's there's a very fine line of risk of permanent injury in a normal wrestling match.
Yeah, I I don't think there's an answer for that, to be completely honest. I don't think there is a way that you can prepare yourself. Like the cast one, I just found a quiet space and just try to calm myself. Even the one against Damien at Deathmatch Down Under's first show, I just had to find a quiet place and just like calm my nerves. There's no real way to like prepare to get hit with a light tube. You just
Yeah.
have to get hit with the light tube.
I mean, it's just sort of accepting the fact of what you're about to do and what you're about to experience, and just
Yeah,
being able to just go with it. And I suppose like if you go into any type of match, and if you have a fear or doubt in your mind, it's like standing on that top, and if you have that doubt, that second moment, that's when the risk of injury just increases and intensifies.
yeah, 100%. And I've been lucky enough because I've been wrestling for about 6 years now. I've been lucky enough to only have like one minor injury, like no big setbacks or anything. So yeah, that's a real big part of it is as soon as it's go time, you need to be ready to go. You can't back out. You can't doubt yourself. You have to be like, this is my spot. I'm gonna take it. And that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what you have to do.
Well, it's funny. Like a friend of mine, Angel, who wrestled in ECW as the leader of the Baldies,
Mm.
he was telling me that the night that New Jack and Vic Grimes came off the top of the thing, where like New Jack pulled him
Yeah,
off the top,
yeah,
he was telling me that that was supposed to be him before, and he was saying, no, it's not stable, it's not stable, you need to put plywood. And they just were like, yeah, fuck it, don't worry about it. But Vic Grimes was like, yeah, I'll do it. And when he was up there, that was one thing Vic was saying. He was hesitant because he was like, he couldn't get his footing right. And then, you know, obviously that what happened next, everybody knows. But
yeah.
it's like that moment of hesitation can really put yourself in a lot of risk.
Mm. Yeah, that's yeah. You need to be completely mentally prepared for everything that you're gonna do, as much as you can. Like when when I was about to go out into a 100 light tube death match, I couldn't be thinking like, I don't want to get cut up with glass because it was inevitable. Like everything that you're supposed to do, you need to be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, then you don't do it because you could either get hurt yourself or the other person could get hurt, and that's not what you want. That's not what the fans want. That's what nobody wants that.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at with deathmatch wrestling, I think for a long time, and probably in some like fields of the pro wrestling world, it is deathmatch wrestling. It really comes across as like the dirty taboo word. And I
Yeah,
think it's like, people think deathmatch wrestling, they think backyard wrestling. But and I said this in the interview that I had with Joel and Jay, was there's good deathmatch wrestling and there's bad deathmatch wrestling. There's good deathmatch workers and there's bad deathmatch workers. It's just like you can see a good traditional match on Raw and you can see a bad traditional match on Raw as well. And
yeah,
I think if deathmatch, and I'm a strong believer, deathmatch wrestling, and I'm a fan of it. Deathmatch wrestling, when done correct, is one of the most insane things to watch as a wrestling fan. And I think every wrestling fan can enjoy a really well planned, good death match.
yeah.
Like,
I completely agree with that. Yeah, there's like that the idea of like bad death matches. There are bad death matches and there are good ones, and that's literally any wrestling. There's comedy wrestling. There's real good comedy wrestling, and then there's comedy wrestling that falls flat.
yeah,
So, yeah,
100%. And I think that's the thing where, as I said before, where people need to be a little bit more open minded, especially for deathmatch wrestling as well, because it's like, you look at over the years, there's been main events in WWE and other programs where they've incorporated barbed wire, they've done these different things. Those are pretty much death matches, and
yeah,
I think that it's when done correctly, and the tease of the weapons, like I've seen some death matches where guys are walking around and literally just gigging themselves walking around the middle of the
yeah,
ring. It's like, that's not really suspending disbelief that you just had the
yeah,
fuck beaten out of you if you're cutting yourself, so
yeah, exactly.
you
And
know
like most of the stuff in there's gonna cut you anyway, so like you don't really need to do that either.
yeah, exactly, like it's a bit over the top. But
Yeah.
what did your family say when you told them you were going to go from being like doing traditional wrestling to now dabbling in the more violent style? Were they supportive of it, or were they like,
Nah.
uh,
Nah. My mum does not like blood at all, so she's gone from like occasionally coming to a show, and now that I'm with DMTU and I'm planning to do as many death matches as I can, it's like she's not going to be able to see me wrestle ever again. Or like my dad doesn't really see deathmatch wrestling as real wrestling, so I got cop that as well. But I'm hoping that I can eventually prove him wrong with that because I believe deathmatch wrestling can be the best wrestling in the world. And like look at the way that is in the States, it's already deathmatch is booming right now. Deathmatch is on the up.
100%?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, like, I've got friends of mine that live in the United States that weren't deathmatch fans, and I was saying, it's like, they're like, no, deathmatch wrestling's crap, and I'm like, no, dude, seriously, you need to go watch like Tournament of Death. You need to go and see like Nick Gage versus G Raver, or like Jimmy Havoc versus Alex Colon, like, or any Matt Tremont match. Those are good deathmatch wrestling. Go check out an Onita match. And he started checking out these matches. He's like, no, dude, fuck, like I was wrong. Like I thought like it was just guys rolling around in glass and fire. I'm like, no.
Yeah, like anybody that thinks that deathmatch wrestling is crap, like watch Nick Gage versus RSP at Run Ricky Run. Like that
100%.
reaction at the end of the show, that's the biggest independent wrestling reaction I've seen pretty much ever. Like not even WWE gets reactions like that these days.
Dude, where fans are throwing shit in the fucking ring,
Yeah.
dude, that's when you know you've got legit heat. And especially in a time where like fans are so smart, they've got the fucking world at their fingertips to really understand that it's a work and whatever. But you know what I mean? Like to get that sort of heat, that was insane, dude. I remember watching that and just being blown away by that reaction.
Yeah,
Even I think
remember.
Ricky got like punched in the face by a fan or some shit.
Yeah, from memory, I think that's what happened. Like I didn't get to see the show live, and then like I checked my Twitter and I just seen the ring getting absolutely littered with crap, and I'm like, I need to see this. I need to see this match. And then when I watched it, it was incredible. Like that's when Eric Ryan joined 4-4, I believe. So
Yeah. Like it's funny, man. Like it's with the death matches, they're so like it's amazing to have like that as the payoff match to a massive feud. And you saw that when you had like the two hate clubs going against each other in the early CCW days, and it was like the big finale in that in Cage of Death, and it was just like, man, fuck, that was the payoff of the whole feud that was years in the making.
Yeah, 100%. And like the a lot of people, their criticism of deathmatch is that there's no story. It's just people hitting each other with just weapons. But there is story. There's story in everything if you do it right. And I think like especially with like DMDU, that's one of the main focuses is we want to do deathmatch, but we don't want to do it just for the sake of being deathmatch. We want it to we want there to be a reason for everything that's happening. I think that's something that we managed to accomplish at the first show and the shows going forward.
I really enjoyed the promos between you and Damian Rivers at the lead up and like seeing it at the press conference, because it was a reason for the 100 light tubes. You know what I mean? Like you could see the intensity in both of you guys in the promos and at the face off and the push and shove. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like you built the storyline to a believability. It's like, okay, these motherfuckers hate each other and want to take each other's heads off with some light tubes. And you know what I mean? Like that's the thing where you see it at that level where people really go, man, I have to see this.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's all wrestling is better with a story. And like I'm really happy with the way that it panned out with myself and Damien, that like we built it to where it needed to be in the main event spot with the 100 light tubes. Thank you for light tubes. Yeah.
Did you feel like extra pressure being in the main event?
Yes, 100%. Because I've like my moniker is nobody, and that's I haven't really been put in that spot at all my career, and like I'm trying to figure out where I want to be and what I want to be, and then like after the cast match it was death match, and then after and out come the Wolves in the main event with Damien. I want to be the Australia's best death match wrestler. That's exactly what I want. And like there was a lot of pressure going into it, but coming out of it I know that if that spot ever comes up for me again, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna make the most of it.
And like talking about your character, like the Callum Butcher, like with a surname like Butcher, man, that's like deathmatch wrestler all over it, man. Like when you started out, like who were some of the guys that you really sort of idolized and really sort of got drew inspiration from in the early parts of your career?
So in the early parts of my career, I wasn't as much into like the deathmatch side of things, and like I came in and I was just like a big fan of like Triple H, and I wanted to be Triple H, and then like I started watching more indie stuff, and then I was like starting to go more towards the deathmatch stuff, and I'm like, I want to be like Nick Gage or Abdullah Kobayashi or Takeda, like all of those guys. I want to take parts of all of them, and I want to build into this nobody character so I can be my like all the bits of them make me who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when I first started, it was like Triple H or it was like Rusev, but then I started actually paying attention to the more outside world of wrestling, like WWE is the mainstream, and I
Yeah.
started to branch out, and yeah, like the thing that I was attracted to most was either Japanese wrestling or deathmatch wrestling. So then Japanese deathmatch wrestling was just heaven to me.
Like, you said you started, venturing out and watching some of the indies. What were some of the indie companies that you really started to enjoy and, really learned from by watching?
Yeah, so it was a lot of like the CZW stuff, like even their non-deathmatch stuff, like the Wired stuff that they do.
Wide
Um,
TV.
yeah, and even like Beyond. I love Beyond Wrestling. I yeah, there's I can't really think of everything right now.
No, it's
I've
all
been
good,
watching
man.
that much wrestling that it all kind of like blurs into one now. Yeah, like
That's the case, man. Like it
yeah,
amalgamates. Like there's so much wrestling at our fingertips now. Like I've got the network, I've got independent wrestling TV, I've got the CZW network, and I think I've got the Ring of Honor network as well. But it's been that long since I and literally like I sit down to watch some wrestling. I'm like, fuck, for like half an hour, I just get overwhelmed of like, what do I watch next? You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah. That's like yeah. I've got IWTV. I've
there's
got
so much out
Fight.
there for us
Yeah,
to watch. And by sitting there and having this vast smorgasbord of wrestling to really enjoy. But do you think that now moving forward you're going to focus more on death matches only? Like, do you think you'll still wrestle traditional matches as well and use
oh
death
yeah.
matches as like big payoff matches, or are you pretty much thinking death matches are where I'm going to play out the rest of my career?
Death matches is the goal. Like I'd love to be able to travel the world and just do death matches everywhere that I can. But I also understand that there's people out there that want to see the the traditional wrestling side of me as well.
Yeah.
And I want to prove that I'm still that. Like I can still do that. I can do both. Like like I know it's a lot like the hybrid um wrestler that's coming up, but that's I want to be able to go into any venue and put on a good match, whether it's a traditional match or a death match. Death match is the focus for me, but whatever opportunity I get handed, I'm going to go for it.
Oh, 100%. And I think like, to be a good deathmatch wrestler, you have to be a solid worker, like a
100%.
traditional
Yeah.
wrestler to be able to do it. Like it's like anything, man. It's like, for example, music. You look at, bands, and you look at like death metal bands, for example, to put it in comparison. It's like when you hear those guys like they're doing the screams, the guttural rolls, and but when they can sing like an acoustic song, their voices are amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it shows that they're really amazing talent when you can strip everything back. And I think deathmatch wrestling, when you strip everything back, you look at guys and they have to be able to understand the fundamentals and basics of what goes into pro wrestling, not just like picking up something and smacking someone over the head with it. Like it's much more than that.
Yeah, and that also ties back to what we were talking about before with like there's good death match and then there's shit death match. A lot of the
Mm.
shit death match is because the person wrestling it is a shit wrestler.
Yeah.
Like you need to be good at the wrestling part of it before you go into the death match part of it. And that's I go to training 3 times a week at the Relentless school here in Melbourne, they're doing wonders for me. Like I'm learning so much every day, and it's making me not only excited to do that, to do death matches, but it's making me excited to get in the ring and show off all these new skills that I have in a traditional wrestling match as well.
Yeah, man, and it's important as well because I think, like I said before, like people label that death matches, oh, they're just guys that can't work. Well,
Yeah,
no, motherfucker. Like, and I think that's amazing to hear that you're really sort of like spending that time training and trying to get better at the craft of wrestling because like I said, strip it all down, it's still pro wrestling.
yeah, that's exactly right.
And you look at some guys, man, like Nick Gage, he can still get in there in a non-death match and still tear it up. And he's probably one of like the biggest death match names guys in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And like anybody that you see on like a GCW card that's doing death matches, they can all go like in a traditional match. That's
Mm.
that's what I aspire to be. Even like people like Takeda or Jun Kasai, like they're mainly booked in death matches now, but whenever they're not, they still go.
And I think that's because like wrestling has really evolved. Like you probably look at deathmatch wrestlers from like the late 90s, early 2000s, where like a lot of them, pardon me, where a lot of them really just went in there and were very stiff in the ring. And like you even saw it just like how they moved around in the ring just looked really uncomfortable being there.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, and I think that's how wrestling's evolved over the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's good to see that like the people getting the opportunities in the death match, like in the big death matches, they're people that have like put in the work to be actually trained, because training is the most important thing of all of this. Like if you're not getting trained properly at a reputable school, like you're gonna get hurt or you're gonna hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the worst possible outcome of any match, is that either people gets seriously hurt.
And I think that as in pro wrestling, it's like it's your job to protect your opponent, and by going to a good wrestling school and training with quality trainers and quality workers, you're going to learn the best way to protect your opponent. There's always times where like shit just doesn't go right, man, and accidents happen, but I mean, if you're trained properly and trained correctly, you're going to be able to know how to avoid that shit from happening and doing as little damage as possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a thing that I've been trying to pass on lately to a lot of the younger guys that I speak to is go to every school that you can, learn every different kind of style, because you'll learn that some ways that you've been taught are the wrong ways and some ways that you've been taught are the right ways, and you can figure that out all together. Then you can put it all together and you can be a better wrestler because of it.
Yeah, 100%. I suppose as well, like there's certain things that people just do differently from others, and that's the same with trainers as well. So
Yeah.
a trainer might say, "Hey, throw a clothesline with your right arm." Well, no, it should be done with your left arm, or whatever it may be. And it's just those little things that I think sometimes that trainers just do differently, and I think guys have to work things out for themselves, as you said, man. Like it's like a baby learning to walk almost, man. You just got to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, and you'll find what makes you comfortable most, like what style you feel most comfortable with, and being comfortable in the ring is one of the most important things. It goes along with the confidence. Like you can't back out of things. You need to be comfortable in the ring. Like you need to,
Oh,
yeah, you can't be like there's somebody I was speaking to who doesn't want to wear a mask anymore, and I was saying, like, if you're uncomfortable in the ring wearing that mask, that puts you in jeopardy and that puts your opponent in jeopardy. So you need to do what
mm,
will make you comfortable. Like
yeah.
that's an important thing, and I don't think a lot of people think about that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to be dressed for comfort, not for leisure.
Yeah,
When you're in a wrestling match, because like yeah, as you said, it's you're putting everyone in jeopardy, even yourself, by doing it. But before you got into wrestling and started training, were you like a backyarder at all? Like, did you start out wrestling in the backyard, like a lot of guys have, man? Did
Yeah.
you start out that path, or would you just go straight into pro training?
Yeah, so I went straight into pro training. I didn't really do any backyard stuff. I like my earliest memory is because I was born in April 1996, and my earliest memory is seeing like Sting on my TV at WCW. So like I've been a fan my entire life, and I had like the beat 'em up buddies. Like I had a Goldberg one, and I had many 5-star matches when I was a 5-year-old with that. But yeah,
Dropping the elbow off the bunk bed and
yeah, off the top of the bunk bed. One time, like he threw me through a window. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, so that was my first death match with my Goldberg beat 'em up buddy. Went through a pane of glass.
Oh,
um, but yeah, like I kind of fell out of wrestling in my teens because like it wasn't cool at school. And
yeah.
then I was in a relationship and went through a breakup, and then I was like, you know what? I want to do this wrestling thing. Like I wasn't allowed to like look at it, so I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna go try and be a wrestler. And then yeah,
So,
I went to a
so
school.
you weren't allowed to watch it as a kid? Like that was
No,
like,
yeah, I was allowed to watch it at home, and then like when I got into that relationship, it was real toxic, and I wasn't even allowed to mention the word wrestling, so because it was uncool. And then
bro,
as soon as I went through the breakup, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to training. I'm like I
bro.
seen the day that I broke up with that person, I seen on my phone a tryout for a training school, and it was in like 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm going to that.
Were you in shape when you went to that tryout?
No, no. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd argue that I'm still getting in shape, but I struggled a lot then. Like now I'd be able to do it no problem, the tryout
Yeah.
that I did. But right back then I struggled. I nearly dropped out of the tryout.
What did you go in there thinking that it was going to be something easier than what it was, or was it
100%.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. I was the kind of person that was like, oh, it'll just be like a trampoline if I have to fall on it. And it's not.
you
It's
weren't one of those guys, man, were you?
I mean, like I knew that it wasn't exactly a trampoline,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
didn't realize it would be like just wood boards and then like that much padding. Like I wasn't expecting that. And then I took
That
my first
stiff.
bump and that sucked. And then like I ran the ropes. I'm like, oh, they'll be easy. They're not easy. They hurt. They bruise. Like everything hurts.
Oh, mate. And like, what did they get you to do in that tryout, man? Like, was there any stuff like wrestling wise? Like, obviously, mentioned taking the first bump, but I imagine that
Yeah.
the first tryout was a lot of cardio.
Yeah, yeah, it was just cardio. Like we had to run laps around the building. They showed us how to do some of the rolls. We did the rolls, and then like right at the end, they're like, "All right, take a bump." And then like they showed us how to do it, and then I did it, and then I was winded, and I felt like I was winded for like 3 days.
Jesus. How many got
Yeah,
like did guys drop out after that session?
yeah, yeah. So there was like 20 of us at the tryout, and then I think only 3 of us are still wrestling, and like
Jesus.
5 people actually got through the tryout. So yeah.
Jesus. Did you get through it?
Yeah, yeah, I got through it, and then we had a second tryout, and that was at George Hitman Julio's gym, which is his shed out the back, and we got through that one as well, and then got offered to join the school.
Wow, man. So that's like some pretty old school type of shit to go through, man. Like to get into wrestling. Like you hear some of like guys that have been wrestling for like 20, 30 years when they started going out, like guys that almost were like putting them through their paces, going, all right, motherfucker, you want to try and do what we do? It's
Yeah,
not going to be easy. Like this is going to be fucking some brutal shit. Do you find like is that the case like in still today with wrestling schools that like hey it's still that hard nosed you will respect the fucking business coming in here?
I feel like it's gotten better, if that's the right word. It's gotten more open and accepting, which is an important thing because in wrestling, everybody's welcome. Everybody's
Yeah,
welcome to try it. Like you get taught how to be respectful, but it's very open. Like everybody knows what it is now. So
100%. There's
Yeah,
no trying to fool anyone that it's a shoot, and
yeah. There's not anybody like fish hooking anybody on their first training session. Like it's very like you'll have your first session to see where you're at and where your cardio's at, and then going forward, they'll work with you to get better. And that's important. Like the school that I'm at now, Relentless, that's when I first got there compared to where I am now. I mean, like it's a completely different person. But
yeah,
they it they critiqued the stuff that I did, but it wasn't bullying or anything. It was like, hey, you do this wrong, maybe try it this way, which is
yeah.
really important.
Oh yeah, and I think as well, like in this day and age, you just like people are different, and people learn things differently as well. If you've got someone standing over you and screaming at you, you may not pick. You know what I mean? Like your mind
Yeah,
just may shut off and go, "Fuck this."
yeah,
And but if someone's going, "Hey man, let's go, come on, dude, keep going, keep driving through," like more of a motivational. Some people get a better result out of that.
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like everybody takes things differently, and over time you'll learn how people take things and how people learn things better. If people
Mm,
need you to be more stern, then they'll be more stern. If people need you to be more soft-spoken and supporting, then they'll do that. That's
yeah.
it's important that people are being real open and like allowing to see how people take things and then like treating them with the respect.
But I,
'Cause-
th- I think I think as well, like, and I don't know, mate, like maybe it's a lot different when you're a new trainee in wrestling. But if someone came in and started swearing and carrying on at me, I'd be like, "Hey, man,
yeah,
like let's be fucking cool, or we're gonna like get the fuck out of my face." Like that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but I think as well, like when you're in that environment, it might be harder for someone to speak up because like they're like, "Oh, I don't want to get kicked out. I don't want to rock the boat."
yeah,
And also being younger and maybe life experiences, that experience isn't up there as yet. So,
yeah, yeah. That's real true. Yeah, that's like any training session that I'm at, I try to make people feel as comfortable as possible. If like I'm not the one running the training session and somebody's like taking the session and they're carrying on like a bit of a dickhead and like somebody gets hurt by that, I'll take them aside and be like, look, let me know when you're ready to come back. I'll make sure that I'm here. We'll run through some stuff.
mm. And I think you saw that with like the speaking out movement last
Yeah,
year, right? And like people were coming out, and it's like what years ago would be considered like per room talk and just, you know what I mean? Like shit that it it's just isn't acceptable. And it is considered bullying and stuff like that. And it was like name after name after name, threatening students, and doing, some horrible shit to some, which did suffer from some mental illness as well. And as you said, man, wrestling for everybody. Everyone should be able to, oh, you're 6 foot and 200 and something kilos. Yeah, we've got a spot for you. No worries. You're a midget. No worries. We got a spot for you too, little man. Come on through. It's one of those things where like there's something for everybody in pro wrestling.
yeah, and that's like it'll take time to be able to get you in the ring. Like I trained for was it 3 years before I had my first match,
Oh
and
wow.
there's like yeah, I said no where like they'll always offer me opportunities, but there'll be people who will be ready and they'll know that they're ready after a couple of months. So it's also about like making sure that people know when they are and aren't ready. And there's been a few times where people have been like, I'm they've asked me to wrestle a match, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be like, and I've said like, do you think you're ready? And they'll say no, and then I'll be like, okay, pull out of the match. You're not doing it.
Did you think that you weren't ready back then for like, and you had to wait 3 years, or was it a confidence thing with you?
It was a lot of a confidence thing. Like I it was part confidence and part not thinking that I'm ready because I've always like hated the way that I look, so I was trying to work on that. But at the same time, I wanted to go out there and be able to put on a good match. And if I'm not able to put on a good match at training, or if I feel like I screwed something up, then I'm going to keep working on that until I am ready.
Yeah. And when you finally did make your first match after 3 years, how was it?
It went well. It was a family show, and I said, "Don't touch the fucking hair," like real loud. So I got critiqued for that. Um, but I've seen a lot worse first matches, so
Yeah.
it wasn't terrible.
Who was it against?
It was against a wrestler here in Melbourne, Mitch Waterman. He's part of the Brat Pack. He
Yeah.
wrestles for MCW. Yeah, that was at a NAW Pure show, the first NAW Pure show.
Yeah. Right. Have you guys wrestled each other since?
No, no.
Is
I'd
that
I'd
one
love
match
to.
you'd like to go back and run it again?
Yeah. Oh, Mitch is probably one of the best wrestlers in Melbourne, if not Australia, at the moment. So if I were to have an opportunity to show to myself and to everybody else how far I've come in the past 6 years, I'd love to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys would like to go and have that first match back
Yeah.
after years in the business and just sort of miles up and down the road and really sort of learning the craft a bit more. It's like, okay, things that you could do differently as far as like selling psychology, and putting spots together as well. Which obviously now after 6 years in the business, your knowledge it would have been astronomical to where it was in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. That entire first match, I had like 3 ideas, and like 2 of them were real shit. But like now I know what works and what I can do. So I'd love to be able to, yeah, have an opportunity to like show to myself how far that I've come.
And as far as like death matches go, who's one guy like? All right, let me put it to you like this way. We'll give you two names, all right?
Yeah.
In deathmatch wrestling, which Australian name is one guy which is on your list that you want to face in a death match? And two, who is the one international name that you want to go up against and face anywhere in the world?
That's that second one's real hard.
It's like
The
asking who's your favorite wrestler to a wrestling fan, isn't it? So
yeah, the
depends what day it is, bro.
the local one, hands down, it would be Joel
Mm.
Bateman. The stuff that like, or Mad Dog. See, that's even locally, it's hard. Because the stuff that both of those guys have done for deathmatch over the past 19 years, 18 years, the stuff that they've done for deathmatch in this country, I'd love to be able to have an opportunity to go up against them and show that I'm there with them, or prove to myself and to everybody else that I'm there with them. The international one, see, like, I'd love to tag with Abdullah Kobayashi just to do
As you
the
said, yeah.
yeah, the Abdullah and the Butcher one. Um, but I think to somebody to work against or work with, um, probably Takeda. Like I'd say that Takeda, Jun Kasai, and Alex Colon are the 3 best deathmatch wrestlers in the world. And
Hundred percent.
I've always been drawn to Takeda. That'd be my big test.
Man, you mentioned Alex Cologne, man. He's on fire right now. Like his
Yeah,
matches are just like, dude. And with the death matches, it's as you said, it's the matches, the careers in death matches can be really long or they can be really short, man. And you just got to appreciate every match that you can see as a fan,
yeah,
being able to appreciate those matches because, you look back now and some of the matches like Drake Younger, Nick Gage that they had like back years ago to pay, like even now, Gage's, I think he's still on top of his game.
yeah.
But, you've really got to appreciate the moment that these guys are in to put on some of these matches because there's amazing stuff happening.
Yeah, Alex he's been another guy that I watched everything that I can of his. I reached out to him on Twitter recently to get advice for the first DMDU show, and he responded to me and he gave me a lot of good advice. And I believe that he's seen the match, so I need to reach out to him and see what advice he has after watching it as well. Yeah.
That's the thing, man. Like deathmatch wrestling is kind of like the rock scene, man. You go to a rock show and you see some of the coolest motherfucking people in the world, and it's the same with deathmatch wrestling, man. You know, like it's just people that are involved in deathmatch or even the fans of deathmatch. It's the same as music, man. Music fans or bands and stuff like that are some of the coolest motherfucking people you'll meet. But
100%.
they're some of the scariest looking motherfuckers you'll meet too, man. So it just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover, because like a lot of these guys are just absolutely amazing human beings as well. Like for Alex just sit there and to give you that sort of feedback and advice and stuff like that, man, it just shows the quality human being that he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex has been real supportive of like everything that DMDU's been doing. So yeah, it's really cool that like he took the time to respond to me and give me the advice, especially somebody that I look up to so highly.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be pretty cool, man. Once this COVID shit comes to an end, if DMDU could get Alex out here, that would be pretty
Yeah.
fucking dope.
Yeah. Joel did one of his podcasts recently, and they were both talking about getting him down. So fingers crossed that that'll happen down the line once borders open.
Oh yeah, man. No, absolutely. I got to interview him a few months ago, and he said he was really cool, really hoping to come down to Australia and check it out. So,
Yeah.
but man, look. But as we're wrapping up here, guys, I just want to take a quick second. Callan, where can people find all your social media? Where can people find you, your merch and that sort of stuff? Can you drop some links?
Yeah. So my my Twitter is just Callan Butcher PW. I think my Instagram is just Callan Butcher. If you go onto wrestlermerch.com, you'll be able to find my merchandise on there. And yeah, be sure to jump onto IWTV and check out DMDU and Out Come the Wolves. It is premiering Thursday at 8 p.m. That is US time, or East Coast US time. And for here in Melbourne, it is Friday at midday at 12 p.m. And make
Man,
sure, yeah, make sure to, yeah, if you haven't signed up to IWTV, make sure you use the code DMDU and you'll get 5 days free. That means you'll be able
absolutely,
to watch
man.
it
Check
live.
it out. Check it out. It's got Deathmatch Down Under there. It's got IWA Mid South. It's got a heap of promotions: H2O, CZW, GCW
Yeah.
shows. It's like $10 a month, and you get some amazing content there. You can also keep up on DMDU and see what these guys are doing. You know, there's a lot of noise on them right now on the Australian wrestling scene and also the deathmatch scene. So make sure you support Deathmatch Down Under. Make sure you support Callan Butcher. Head over, get some of his merch, check it out. Callan, look, thank you so much for coming on and giving up your time on a Tuesday evening, man. I really appreciate you giving up your time to talk to me tonight. Thank you so much, man. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking out that show on Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. No, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it wasn't giving up any time at all. Always happy to
That's
be
all.
on.
That's awesome, man. And just to everyone watching, thank you very much for tuning in live. I really appreciate it. If you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't done already, hit that bell to stay notified, hit that subscribe button, smash that share and that like button. It it just helps the algorithm get more things out there so we can get some more content out to more people, guys. So if you could do that, I'd be greatly appreciated. But until next time, Callan, thanks again, man. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Peace.